Hi and welcome back to the finals part of this getting started and making your first map tutorial. There were a couple of things that I probably should have covered off in the last second part, but I just thought I'd quickly just jump back on and cover off just some finer detail in regards to fogging distance, your spectator point when the map starts up, just a couple of things. So just finding my map again to open back up into TVed. There we go. Opening. Now what we're going to do here is, I didn't explain last tutorial, is how to set up your fogging distance, and this is what assists with doing such things as cutting down on frame rate, or to improve frame rate, better said. I've actually applied it to the map. As you can see there, the fogging distance is actually showing up and cutting out the foreground. So in game, when you're actually running around in your map, obviously adjustable by your options, but you can enable it in TVed to give that effect of, draw distance in the scenery. What I'm going to do actually though is just show you how you can disable it, because when you create a map, and if you enable a fogging distance up straight away, it's going to be there for the remaining time you're working on your map, and it can be a little bit of a pain just trying to get an idea of where things are sitting and how they're positioned on your map. So the way you get rid of your fogging distance, as well as a couple other things, but just to get rid of your fogging distance, if you do enable it sooner than later, right click on the screen where you want to disable it, which is obviously going to be the bottom left. Right click, get into view, and you'll see there show fogging distance or show distance fog. If you click on that at the moment, the tick is simply saying that it's enabled. That'll make it disappear. So once again, it'll just clears up your map so you can see exactly what you're doing. Now, to enable your fogging distance, there are some key areas where you've got to take into consideration in regards to making the right sort of fog for your map. And the way that you do that is you've got to draw from your skybox. The skybox is obviously the outer scenery that you see beyond the map, beyond the outer bounds grid, which is accessible via TVed. And you need to assign the fogging distance via the zone info, and choose that from your skybox. So to start with, I'm going to bring up the group browser, and the group browser is the window which shows you all the actors in your map. Make sure the all actors is activated so it shows all the different actors. Now what we're looking for is sky info. Now basically scroll down to your find or sky zone info until you find it. It'll be basically the first S in that list. Once you've found it, right click and choose go to. What will happen now, if you scroll out, we'll get into our skybox. If you use this top screen here, as you can see, your skybox is signified on the top screen there by a little square with the zone info in the center. But scroll all the way out, you can see where it is in relation to your overhead screen. Sorry about that, just got a text message. So doing it the way that I showed you in regards to going through your actor groups is the faster way to do it. Don't be bothered with navigating through this part of the map or the screen to get to your skybox info. Certainly suggest doing the way that I showed you. Alright, now that we're in our skybox, as you can see, you've got the four sides. You've got the ceiling, or the roof, and you've got your bottom layer, which generally is going to be a very flat colour. It's going to be a colour, but it's going to be flat across the whole shader. So via your class or your actor groups browser while it's up, we need to go down and find your zone info. It just froze. Now scroll basically right down to the bottom, that's where you'll find it. Now when you create a map for the first time, there's going to be one zone info only by default, and that's in one of the prefabs, which is right here, and it also shows up on your map as well. What we want to do is bring up the properties, so right click on the zone info and choose properties. Now I've already done this. When you first open this up to muck about with your fogging parameters, this is what you'll see. You'll basically see zone info, the name of the actual info. All these selections here will be at false, and terrain zone will be true. So what you need to do is you actually need to go to the clear to fog color. You need to change that to true. Clip to distance fog. That needs to be on true. And distance fog needs to be on true. Now they're just some standard settings. If you go into some of the retail maps and look a little bit into the way they've set things up, you can find some different variables of how they've done their fogging to once again improve frame rate and other things. But that's just a good starting point. If you make sure that those three there are changed to true, you'll be sitting pretty well. Next thing we need to go down to is finding our zone light. So click on the little addition symbol and then scroll down further so you bring it all up. And what we're looking for here is the distance fog color. Now once again, I would refer to retail maps just to have a look at these settings here, but all I'm concerned about showing you at the moment is the distance to fog color. Now this is where we have to basically pick this color here and put it here. The way you do that is click on this little arrow key to bring it up, and then click on it again to bring up pick. So highlight that, and then you'll see this little eyedropper appear on your screen. So basically, wherever you click is going to pick up that color. Now I've already done it beforehand, but I'll do it again. Alright, and basically that'll change, just to show you that it does actually change into a different color. If I was to go up to the roof, for example, pick on the white. Didn't actually show a change there, so I'm full of shit. Try again. Alright. The skybox is way too dark basically to show you a change, but trust me, clicking on that, choosing pick, and clicking on your bottom layer of your skybox will set up the fogging color correctly. Right, now we can close that down. Now basically, to go back to your map, click on your terrain info down the bottom here, make sure it's highlighted, right click and choose go to. Scroll back away, and there we are back in our map. Now as I said before, I disabled the fogging distance, but you can enable that back in there again. It's going to close down the class browser, ActiveGroups browser, go to view, show distance fog, and there you go, there it's enabled. I think by default when you set up those parameters, it will automatically set the distance fog in place straight away. Alright, so that's how you set up your fog. I'm just going to turn off distance fog. When you create a map for the first time, as I said, there's a number of prefabs which get added to your map, and one of those prefabs is a single player default start. Now when you're creating your map, and before you get all the base assignments done so you can actually play it in multiplayer and go and choose it by your server list, the single player default start actually allows you to view your game before you can access it via a server list. And the way you do that is with this single player default start. What you would do is go into Startup TV. Once you've got to a point where you want to view your map, go into TV and start it up. And basically, once you get to the start screen, you've got to open up console mode, and you simply just type in, which is normally the tab key, you simply just type in open, and then space, and then the direct name of your map. So in this case here, I'd put in open space mp/volcano, and then hit enter, and then actually let you go into the map and check it out. So you don't have to necessarily wait until it's all finalized before you can actually look at it. But once it's all finalized, you need to get rid of that single player default start. I've actually found issues with maps. If you leave it in there, it can cause problems with it actually starting up the map. Once you start putting in multiplayer stuff, it conflicts with the single player that I've found. I'm not sure whether it's consistent with other map makers, but I've found that it conflicts with the multiplayer and the single player, and it'll cause complications with your map. So what you do to find it, because like I said, it's normally linked with all your prefabs, which are generally right in the center of your map there. Now I've actually already deleted it, but it'll look the same as the multiplayer default start, a little joystick. The way you define whether it's a single player or a multiplayer, go up to your actor groups. Same thing again, make sure that your all actors is highlighted, and you simply scroll up down this list to find single player default start. As you can see there, I've removed it and I've added a multiplayer default start, and that's what you have to do. So first point of call is remove the single player default start, and then via your classes, once again highlighting base object classes and game classes and hitting open. Short pause. Going down through your drop down window and finding game classes. There it is there. You're looking for a multiplayer start default. And just for argument's sake, there is the single player start default. You want to add one of these. And just so you don't get lost, try and add one of those to place on the base. If you just click on the screen or the terrain somewhere, it could end up right down the bottom of the map and it'll be hard to find. But what you do is just simply make sure it's highlighted up in here, go to add multiplayer start default here. Now what you're going to do now is set up the position of the map that you will first see when the game starts up. Basically this is the position that anybody entering the server will first see, if that makes sense, of the map to before they actually click on a side or hit a spawn point. And the way that you position this, or the easiest way I found to position your multiplayer default start. Now I'm just going to delete this because I've already added one. I'm going to delete. Going to go back into my actor groups. Going to find that observer or that default start that I've already added, which is right there. Now I'm going to hit go to find it. Now just imagine this is the one we just added to the base platform before. As I showed you with your sunlight, click on this little eye and then click on the joystick. And what that basically does, puts you in a bird's eye view of wherever that icon is. So what you need to do now is just find a location on the map that you're happy with regarding where or what people see when they first join the server. Now I've basically spanned it over here so it gets a good view of the volcano. And I'll position it again. So once again, when you're happy with the position, unclick the eye, and the joystick may have disappeared now, but it'll reappear once I rebuild the map. But that's how you pick a location, I suppose, for the observer point. Now in that, via your actor groups browser, as you can see, I've changed the naming here. It should say multiplayer start default. I've actually added the word observer. Now right click on the multiplayer default start that you've added and go to properties. What you need to do here is to set a couple of parameters. First thing I would suggest is name it observer, so when you're going back in and out of your map via TVed, you know exactly which multiplayer start is set up to be the viewpoint when you start the map. Just simply add the word observer to it. Add whatever you like, that's what I add to it. And you need to go up to this slot here where it says observer start. That is by default false when you add this, but you've got to go in there and change it to true. And once you've done that, close down that window, and now you're basically done. Now the last thing that I want to show you quite quickly is something about zone infos. Now this is going to be explained in more detail in a later tutorial, but via your actor groups browser, right click on that and hit go to. Now this is your zone info. Now I just want to quickly touch on this zone info. If you right click on it, you'll bring up its property box. And this is where we're mucking around with the fogging distance and what have you. But like I said, a lot of parameters in here can be adjusted to once again improve frame rate. Now I'm not going to touch on them now, but I just wanted to simply just bring it to your attention. That's what the zone info is. And if you imagine every bit which controls the frame rate and the way the game actually reacts on a server and when you join it is basically maintained by this little zone info. And the bigger and more complex your map gets, the more work that zone info's got to do. So with the next one of the tutorials that I'll show later on, there's a way of adding more zone infos in there where the detail is probably at its highest on the map to once again try and improve frame rate, or at least not make it any worse than what it currently is. But in short, that I believe covers off the final tutorial for getting started and making your first map. Yeah, I can't think of anything else, so that should basically get you on your way. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye.